Shithouse is a shit show. Okay, actually, it's a pretty good movie. I was hoping it would be bad so I could use that pun, but it's good now. I can't use it, but I still want to include it. What can I do? Welcome to Indecent. My name is Vincent and I'm here to take a look at some indie films, both old and new, to help you find what could be your next favorite movie. So, if you have a heart for passion projects or low-budget masterpieces, subscribe to my journey on the quest to find the ultimate independent production. But with all that out of the way, let's dive right into my personal thoughts and feelings on Shithouse. Shithouse is a 2020 American coming-of-age comedy drama film, written, directed by, produced and starring Cooper Rife. It is about a lonely college freshman who forges a strong connection with his resident assistant during a fraternity party. First, I'm gonna have some non-spoiler talk to help you get a general idea whether you want to watch this movie or not. I don't want to spoil it for you right off the bat, and if you like what you're hearing, no matter where you are, I mean, I don't care if you're at work, pause the video, go watch the movie and come back. Just kidding, work responsibly. So I'll start off by saying I actually did like this movie. It was an emotional roller coaster, not really the movie itself, but my thoughts on it. Because there were times where I loved the movie, times where I liked the movie, and times where I didn't like the movie. And there's a bunch of factors that tie into that. So the first thing that I would say makes me like the movie but also dislike it is the fact that this movie is essentially every scriptwriter's first script. You know, fellow scriptwriter, how the first movie you ever write where you're like, you want to write something that's, you know, easy to film, doesn't require a high budget. So you write a story about an awkward guy at a party who meets this party girl and their social interactions throughout the night. I mean, everyone has a script like that lying in their basement, but I mean, this movie takes that concept and does a good job executing it. It's just a very familiar story with some very interesting elements that they introduced to it. I really loved the fact that they were truly succeeding at being sincere, and I know how a lot of indie movies creep up their own butt. Shithouse didn't. Get it? Shithouse, but anyway. So I really liked that, but then there were scenes where I'm like, okay, wait, I take this back. This is very indie. Like, there are scenes where it just feels like, okay, they're trying really hard to write some, you know, that's deep dialogue, which sometimes I feel like I see through it, where if a movie does it well, good job. A movie that does it excellently, my favorite movie of all time is Comet. They do the deep indie talk without making it feel like, oh, that's deep, man. So I feel like Shithouse falls a bit into that trap, but nevertheless, the conversations are super interesting between essentially the two main characters of the movie. And I mean, that's essentially what the movie is about, these two main characters. And for the most part, they are genuinely interesting characters, although I don't think they're as multi-dimensional as the movie thinks they are. At the end of the day, Alex, the male main character, is two things. He's insecure and he's more insecure. Those are his two personality traits. I found his portrayal sometimes a bit one-dimensional, but I don't want to trash the actor. I think he did a good job. I just felt like sometimes there could have been more subtle ways to add depth to these characters. And then there's Maggie, who I'm ignorant, but she feels like she's on TikTok. Not the character, just the actress. I don't know. She just looks like a TikToker. She probably isn't. Fun fact, she's actually in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. I was shocked when I found that out. But she gives an okay performance. I sometimes feel like she's overacting at times, where she's like, I'm gonna win a independent movie acting award for this performance, and I don't like that. I feel like she could have been more subtle, whereas Alex does that as well, but it kind of works for his character. I don't know, it's kind of a preference thing. I don't think everyone's going to feel this way, but it at times bothered me. But generally, I think they had pretty good chemistry. I think the main characters, their dialogue was motivated in interesting ways, and for the most part, I enjoyed the interactions between these two characters. So to wrap up the spoiler-free talk, I would say this is a solid 7 out of 10. Not that I want to rate movies like that, but I would say it's a very good and watchable movie, and I could genuinely recommend it. I think it's not as unique as it wants to be, and I know a lot of people really loved this movie, but I can honestly say there are better college indie movies out there. But I genuinely think if you like this type of stuff, you would enjoy this movie. But if I could recommend a movie which I think tries to touch on the same themes but does it immensely more creative and with beautiful acting. It's a movie by the name of Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, which is also one of my favorites. But nevertheless, I could genuinely recommend this movie. I think most people would get something out of it. Do mind that it's quite vulgar at times if that type of thing bothers you, but I don't think it's excessive, so you should be fine. Now, before I go into my deeper thoughts on this movie, I'd like to once again ask you to subscribe, support the little guy. The little guy's trying to support the little guys. It's kind of a pay-it-forward system. Support me as I support the little guys. I'm not going to say more than that, but do subscribe if you like this sort of content and if you like thinking deeper about your favorite indie movie. So one thing that really surprised me about this film is the fact that the dialogue is more intriguing than it should be. I don't know how to explain this, but I keep on watching and I'm like, okay, this is pretty slow paced and it's not like witty, quick dialogue, but I'm not bored. I'm not frustrated. I'm actually still enjoying it. So I can't exactly pinpoint how they got that right, but it worked. I think that it's probably the dynamic between the two main characters that worked enough that you never felt bored or that you wanted to stop watching or scroll on your phone. I mean, maybe on a bad day I would have done that, but nevertheless, I felt intrigued by the dialogue, which really surprised me. Something that I really loved about this movie though, but it threw me off guard at first and almost made me not like it, but then I found that I actually find it quite intriguing because it's quite a unique take, is the third act of the movie. Now, once again, spoiler talk, I didn't expect it to turn into a denial piece, if you will. The whole situation with Maggie denying Alex and denying the connection they had. It was quite unexpected, and it like that moment where they wake up that morning and she's like acting uncomfortable and he's not getting it, it made me feel very uncomfortable, but I didn't mind that feeling. It was like a wow, that's interesting that they're taking this turn, and I was so annoyed with Maggie, but I was like, you know, that's the character, that's what she's doing. And I really enjoyed the third act and that whole dynamic of saying, hey, wake up, we had this amazing time. Loved that third act of the movie. And it's like I said, it's because it wasn't expected. It did throw me off a little, but once I got into it, I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing. I actually appreciate this. And I appreciate the breathing room it gave for Alex to form a deeper connection to Sam is his name, or Max, the roommates. So that was an interesting thing that I really thought was cool, but I feel like they kind of squandered it towards the end because I really didn't like the time jump. It's not that I didn't want a time jump per se, it's the length of the time jump. They said 2.5 years passed. The dynamic between everyone felt like it had been a week. It didn't feel like people who had been in relationships and friendships for 2.5 years. And I think it was completely unnecessary to do a 2.5 year time jump. I would say do a month at most, because it didn't feel like there was more than a month's worth of character development, just in the subtle ways that they interact with one another. They change the text and it would have changed everything. Those are my thoughts on Shithouse. There's not much more to be said. It is pretty run-of-the-mill. It is pretty straightforward, and I think it's a great movie, and it feels like is a director who's shown promise for future works. I hope that he really leans in to the obscure and eccentric, and I'm not saying he should go crazy, but I think there's a lot of unique approaches to this movie that I appreciate, and I hope that the director really learns to find his voice. And I mean, Alex, the main character, is the director, so it's clearly a young guy, and I'm excited for what's next. I'll definitely be checking him out, and I'm on his side, I'm on his team. But I think it's important that you don't just praise a director's first movie, and honestly, I don't know if this is his first movie, I'm speaking by assumption, but don't praise it as if this is amazing, it doesn't get better than this, because it's important that your first film is mediocre to good, so that you don't plateau at 24. So I'm excited to see where he grows from here, because I really think he will, if he keeps on exploring his individual unique voice. But that's Indecent, and that's Shithouse. Let me know what you thought about the movie. Really hope that if you haven't seen it, that you'll go check it out. It's worth checking out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too. Let me know which indie movie you would want me to review, although if you're recommending it, and if a bunch of people are recommending it, it's not that indie. So I don't know how we're supposed to go about this. I guess you'll just, you know, hope and pray that I find the good ones. But other than that, I'll check the next one and I'll see you there. Bye.